Eyewitness confidence is an important factor that people use in determining whether their identifications are accurate or not. An eyewitness who is highly confident that they have identified the perpetrator is quite reasonably seen as likely to be more accurate than one who is not confident. This matters during lineups, of course, but also at other stages of the criminal justice process, such as when the eyewitness is identifying the suspect at the trial. So we've shown how we can describe relationships of different strengths between accuracy and confidence. Which of these relationships between accuracy and confidence is the reality? Criminal justice professionals and lay people estimate the relationship to be about 0.7, according to a study by Gary Wells of the University of Alberta. Is the assumption that eyewitness confidence correlates with their accuracy correct? Is that the reality? Not according to Robert Bothwell and colleagues from Florida State University, who used a meta-analysis to combine the findings of 35 behavioural studies to estimate this. Their estimate came in at 0.25. So not zero, but a much weaker relationship than the professionals and lay people believed, where there's a huge amount of overlap between the confidence levels of the accurate and inaccurate eyewitnesses. Here's what leading eyewitness memory researcher Elizabeth Loftus has to say on the matter, linking back to our previous discussion of false memories.
So that when you try to call up a memory for a past event, you're reconstructing, and there can be lots of errors.
Okay, but surely if I'm really confident about my belief or my recollection, and it's really sincere and really emotional, surely that means it's more likely to be an accurate memory.
Well, it may be slightly more likely to be an accurate memory if you're really confident about it. But confidence is not a good indicator that your memory is accurate, because false memories can be expressed with a lot of confidence, they can be expressed with a lot of detail, they can be expressed with a lot of emotion, and so they have the same characteristics as true memories. And just relying on those characteristics can mislead people into thinking that something is real when it's not.
So overall, confidence appears to be problematic when used as a marker of an eyewitness's accuracy. But, and it's a big but, Bothwell's 0.25 correlation is the overall correlation across lots of different outcomes and situations. Is it the case that this correlation stays the same under all circumstances? The answer is no. And that's why the truth of this accuracy-confidence relationship has turned out to be rather more complex than was originally thought. For a start, Robert Bothwell found that the correlation increased if the eyewitness had viewed the perpetrator for a longer duration. So, while it might be considered common sense that an eyewitness's identification accuracy would improve the longer they viewed the perpetrator, it's also the case that the degree to which their level of confidence becomes a reliable indicator of their accuracy also improves the longer they viewed the perpetrator. Let's look at another variable, whether the eyewitness actually identified the suspect or not. So, they can either identify the suspect as being the criminal, or they can reject them as not being the criminal. Siegfried Sporer of the University of Aberdeen and colleagues found that the extent to which eyewitness confidence predicted their level of accuracy depended on what the outcome was. When eyewitnesses didn't identify the suspect as being the criminal, the correlation between confidence and accuracy dropped to 0.1, virtually zero. That means the eyewitness's confidence in this case tells us nothing about whether they're right or wrong. However, when the eyewitness did identify the suspect as the criminal, the correlation coefficient rose to 0.4. That means the eyewitness's confidence in this case does offer some information about whether they're right or wrong. Lots of other factors have also been found to affect the extent to which confidence predicts accuracy. One example is the extent to which an innocent suspect and the criminal look similar, Another influencing factor is the age of the eyewitness. For instance, child witnesses' confidence tells us very little about accuracy compared with adult witnesses. However, maybe we can control or screen for all of these sorts of things, and then maybe we can get something useful out of eyewitness confidence. Well, there is one further big problem with eyewitness confidence, especially in a trial setting, which is that it can be changed, it can be manipulated with scary ease. For example, if I wanted to make the eyewitness more confident, all I need to do is provide some encouraging feedback after, say, the lineup. Something like, "Oh, good, you identified the suspect," or "Excellent, that's who the other eyewitnesses identified too." If I wanted to make the eyewitness less confident, all I need to do is provide feedback implying they may have made the wrong choice. In the case of Lytle Grant, it's noted that the witnesses all received confirming post-identification feedback that likely inflated their confidence. I could even provide indirect feedback, not about their decision, but about whether an easy identification is expected or not under the circumstances. For instance, I could say, "You must have got a pretty clear view of the criminal from where you were," or "I realise it must be tricky to identify the criminal under those sorts of circumstances." It's not hard to imagine these sorts of interventions occurring in a real-world criminal justice situation, even without any deliberate intent on the part of the manipulator. And it's been found that you can even influence whether an eyewitness is willing to testify at all or not by this type of influence. Overall, these factors come together so that when we get to the courtroom, it's clear that it would be potentially dangerous to rely on the eyewitness's level of confidence in order to determine whether to believe them or not. In the case of Lytle Grant, there is some evidence that feedback following the initial lineups changed eyewitnesses' confidence in their own judgments. One of the eyewitnesses, a bouncer at the club, Andrew Vu, said, "I picked Mr. Grant even though I did not really feel he was the guy. However, I talked to my co-workers afterwards and they were all sure Mr. Grant was the person, so I agreed. Because my co-workers believed it was Mr. Grant, I thought I was the one making a mistake."